Welcome back to Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. Bill, how you doing today?
Doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're talking about ball. We're talking about recruiting on the show. We're talking about win totals. And at the end, we'll do what you're watching, what you're eating, what you're thinking. And I have a visual aid for that I forgot last week. And you know what it is because I acquired this in your presence. And then last week when the show was over, my wife was like, oh, why didn't you do the thing? And I was, I had it on my nightstand for like 12 days waiting to use it as a visual aid for Whatcha.
I can't remember. I'm excited to see what it is because I have no recollection of that. So,
it's a really important thing in my life. It's okay if you don't remember. Like it's okay. And I do just want to say, I want to talk about the impact that Kings of the North has on people. And I just want to cite this example very quickly. And obviously we understand that college football, it's kind of a fun little lark, but we like to talk about it. And we know that people have real lives. And I just would like to say that we did our fake trades on the last show on Monday, right? We like to do fake trades. It's a fun way to think about things. And you did a fake trade involving Northwestern and Navy. Mm-hmm. And one of the players, there's news from two of the players that you put in that trade. One of them is Kenny Soares, I believe, from Northwestern you had in that trade as a linebacker, right? He's gone in the portal. He's trading himself. So he has gone in the portal since that show. So this kind of thing happens. And the other thing is I mentioned that my daughter happens to have class with Nigel Glover at Northwestern, who's another player that you put in the show. Yep. And my daughter told me that after watching that show, she had a very vivid dream that night that Nigel Glover was in fact trying to transfer to Navy after you traded him from Northwestern to Navy. And in the very vivid dream, he was telling Navy, look, Bill Landis said this makes sense. This is why Navy should let me in.
Love that.
And great. You are seeping into my daughter's subconscious. So I just want to hat tip. What you do matters, Bill. What you do matters.
I like it's a lot of power to wield, but I accept the responsibility.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about recruiting. We'll talk about win totals. The other thing that happened is that we've done various win total things. They're all out. FanDuel has all 68 Power 4 teams. They are out with the win totals, which means all 28 of our northern teams are out. And we're going to talk about them in groups so we can finally assess. And I think it's good for this, for everybody. You're thinking about your team. It's going to give you a little note of like, oh, here are the other teams we're going to go by. These are the teams that projected 10.5 win over under. This is 8.5. This is 7.5. And we'll talk about those teams in groups. Just have like another reset on that. But recruiting first, Bill, does recruiting still matter in college football?
Yeah, I think it does. Yes. Different, but it matters. Yeah.
So we can talk about the class of 2026 then. Some things are popping, but by your analysis of the top 250 prospects in the 24/7 Sports composite ratings, only 77 of those 250 for the class of 26, they're going to sign in early December. As we sit here in mid-early March, 77 of the top 250 are committed. That felt low to you.
It feels very low to me, actually. And I didn't go back to compare, so it's anecdotal, but I would say that I would have expected like at least half of those players to be committed, and they're not. It's 77 out of 250. I think a couple of things are at play there. I think people know by now that prospects can start taking official visits in June prior to their senior year. So that's become like the time of year where guys make those 5 visits, go into decision mode. And I think a lot of the stuff sort of gets settled in the June, July window. And I think maybe the process is just catching up to that a little bit more. I also wonder if the playoff and the structure of the calendar is impacting this too, where maybe a lot of staff, especially the bigger programs who were in the playoff, maybe haven't had as much time to go out on the road and foster some of these relationships, which has maybe slowed down the commitment process too. I actually think it's good that the commitment process seems to have slowed down a little bit, but that number was striking to me. And again, I probably should go back and compare it, although that'd be pretty difficult, I think, to see what this number typically is this time of year. But 77 out of 250 felt pretty low, as did 8 of all of the 35-star composite prospects being committed. That also felt low to me.
Okay, so as always, there are some teams that are out there really getting it done, and there are some teams that are, kind of not doing much so far. Like just looking at some, West Virginia has 2 commitments so far in the class of 2026. I think Kansas State has 1. BYU has 3. Michigan and Nebraska only have 3, right? And then there you have some schools. USC has 14 already, but in the North, Kansas already has 13 commitments. Illinois has 10. Oregon has 9. Boston College has 9. Syracuse has 9. Penn State has 8. Iowa State has 8. There's still, I think, enough wiggle room in this, right? Bill, where some schools get out, and we're going to point out some things on some of the more interesting things happening as it relates to Northern football. Some schools get out early, maybe especially with some local kids, and some schools take their time.
It seems like more are taking their time. Like even the fact that there are only 5 programs that have double-digit commits right now feels off to me. USC, Kansas, Clemson, Illinois, and Louisville are the only teams that have double-digit commits. Okay. And we've had conversations in the past about like Alabama under Nick Saban was always like kind of like lagging behind this time of year, and then bang, would get 15 commitments in June and be back on like number 1 on the recruiting rankings. So typically you would see like weird programs at the top around March, and I don't know, USC is number 1 right now. We consider them a weird program. I don't know if that's necessarily
they're
true
weird.
Because
I consider them weird.
They're weird. They're weird, and we'll talk about them because they're doing a thing that's making me angry. But there's not even like really that. It's just like it really does seem like everyone's kind of slow playing things. Some of that, like I said, maybe from the team side, but combination of things. Even the fact that like I don't know, like in the NIL world, can you wait a little longer to bump up that payday? Maybe if you string this thing out a little longer. So it just all feels a bit happening a bit slower than it typically does.
Well, you're negotiating now, right? You're not just visiting. Right. You're not just building relationships. You're negotiating on both sides. Teams are trying to figure out with their NIL collectives, with the rev share that's coming, like everybody, like what do we have? How do we want to spend it? And this is not a recruiting show. People know that, but recruiting still really matters to college football. I was joking at the beginning. Do you still believe that you build most places, you still build your team through recruiting and you supplement through the portal? There will be exceptions. Yes. Indiana and Colorado were 2 very successful exceptions last year, where honestly they really built their teams in the portal. But that's still not the norm. Oregon's going hard in the portal, but Oregon's also going hard in this recruiting class.
No, I think that is still the way to build through recruiting and try to develop, supplement with the portal. There will be windows in a given year, maybe where you have to do more of the latter to make your roster right. But I think the teams that most often show up in the playoff picture and the national championship picture will be the teams that still do the best job of recruiting out of high school.
Yeah, and again, I certainly would not view any team that doesn't have many commits right now as like they're behind, or that any team that has a bunch of commits right now as like they're desperate. It's just interesting to see different strategies unfold. And so we can just evaluate what's happened so far. And one of the other things that are happening, and we are also realistic about this, as much as we talk about North-South and as much as like we wave swords and talk about dog mentality, there are still going to be more higher rated recruits from the South. That's still a reality. And we're working on some other stuff beyond the show where we're very interested in like Southern players who go north, Northern players who are stolen away by the South. What's the percentage of top recruits in different regions? And your breakdown here, Bill, the 5 stars, 35 stars in the class of 2026 in the 24/7 composite ratings, 21 from the South, only 2 from the North, and then 7 from border states, which again, like, this is our definition of all this stuff. But for us in recruiting, border states are California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Hawaii. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I think we had a conversation. We went to a library and had a conversation about this the other day. When you look at this, 5 stars, 21 in the South, 2 in the North. It is a reminder again of what we up here are trying to overcome in a variety of ways when it comes to the basics of high school football recruiting.
Yes, but even this kind of hit me a little bit because last year there were 32 composite 5-star prospects and 8 of them were in the North. So like there's always going to be an imbalance, just a matter of to what degree. But 21 to 2 feels off. or at least like maybe not relative to North and South. Maybe there's just more border here than there typically is. California seems to be pretty good this year. The number one player in the country in 2026 is from Missouri, which is like, we consider it the South, but like maybe it's like more actually like a border. So there's a little bit of like gray area in there as well. But always acknowledging the reality of what this is. We understand that there are more good football players in the South, at least coming out of high school, than there are in the North. And it's on the North to account for that, and I think attack the South a little bit. But this number is rather stark, I think, in its imbalance, 21-2 in South versus North.
It's not an excuse, but it's a reality. So we have to present the reality sometimes. Top 100 players in the class of 26 from the 24/7 composite ratings, also pretty stark, according to your research. 67 from the South, only 18 from the North, and then 15 from the border. This is like, again, just backing it up. It's at the very top, but it's also in the big group at the top.
Yep, and I didn't go through the top 250. I can do that maybe at a later date, but I would imagine we would find this along the way, right? There's just always going to be this imbalance, whether it's, you know, two-thirds of those prospects being in the South, or even sometimes 75%. It's just always going to be something that the Northern schools have to overcome.
Yeah, and so this continues to be a thing. And the reason we call it borders, like when we're thinking about really the Northern schools and really the Southern schools, you know, high school prospects in California and Arizona, especially in Nevada, the Vegas kids and stuff, like that's an opportunity where Northern teams should have every opportunity to go in and get kids out of those areas as Southern teams do. And you'll see most of the, like a lot of the time, USC is going to try to be active with those kids. Oregon's going to be active with those kids. Certainly Arizona State's going to try to keep some kids home and that kind of thing. Utah might dip in and try to be active there. But a lot of it, those kids, if you go through like the very best kids from like that Southwest area or the far West, they're talking to Bama and Texas and Clemson and Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State and like that. But there shouldn't be an edge in the North. Should be able to go in and win some battles there, which is again why that border 15 matters. Yeah,
it matters. You also get the transplant factor there too, right? Like a lot of who's actually from Arizona. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that too. So I think that's where I think the North can make some hay, right? Is finding people who left the Midwest or to go to Arizona. And I think there's a decent amount of people like who like leave California to go to Arizona too. So USC can't take all of them, and frankly probably isn't doing a good enough job of taking what they should. So it's available, but you got to put the work in. The more USC is a mess, the more interesting this is.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that you had the top 3 quarterbacks in the class a couple years ago were all from Southern California. And Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and DJ Uiagalelei, and they went to Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson, and nobody thought it really about staying home at USC, right? Like that's if USC is rolling, and it's like, well, USC is just taking like 5 of the top 8 kids in Southern California, then it's a different conversation. But when they're open, and when the state of Arizona, you know, Bijan Robinson, great NFL player, was a battle between Ohio State and Texas to get a running back out of Arizona, right? Like when you have things like that, that's where the North has to go win some battles. Okay. We're laying it out a little bit. We're going to talk about some specific areas. And I want to start with like the highest rated recruit who is currently committed to a school, and it's Northern school. And it is like fascinating to me, Landis. And I guess there's actually like, there's another guy committed to Tennessee, but he's not quite as highly ranked. It's Zion Ely, who's an edge rusher from St. Francis Academy in Baltimore. In the 24/7 composite ratings, he's the number 4 player. He's a 5-star recruit. He is committed to Maryland. He has been committed to Maryland for a while, but a couple weeks ago, like he announced he's shutting down his recruitment. And that was the difference. This is not news, but we have not really discussed it here. In late February, he told ESPN that he had canceled his official visits to all these other schools. And he had planned on visiting Auburn, Ohio State, Penn State, Texas A&M, South Carolina, all those schools in the mix, even though he was committed to Maryland. And he just said, like, I'm not doing it. So he still plans an official visit to Maryland in June, but he has officially like shut down the other official visits. And he wants to go to Maryland, and he's the 4th best player in his class. And it wasn't so long ago that Chase Young, for instance, was a player from that area in Maryland who was a 5-star recruit and chose to go to Ohio State. You never know how recruits are going to work
Dylan
out.
Stewart,
But imagine
Dylan Stewart's from that area. Yeah, he went to
Dylan
South
Stewart's
Carolina.
from that. Imagine if Chase Young or Dylan Stewart went to Maryland. Like, that's what we're potentially talking about here with Zion Neely. And then the fascinating thing about this is he might not even wind up the highest ranked recruit in Maryland's class, because Emmanuel Iancho, who is an offensive tackle who in the 24/7 composite ratings is the number 3 overall player. Ely is number 4. Iancho is number 3. From Rockville, Maryland. He's thinking hard about Maryland, and he has given interviews. He's had other schools that he has looked at. He's been interested in Oregon. He's interested in Penn State. He's interested in Tennessee. He gave an interview a couple weeks ago where, like, when he was talking about the coaching staffs he has the best relationships with, those are the 3 schools he mentioned: Penn State, Oregon, and Tennessee. Ohio State also in the mix there, potentially Miami in the mix, Ohio State in the mix. But Jeff Ehrman, who's a really good beat writer for Maryland at 24/7, in March has put in a crystal ball prediction with a confidence of 7 out of 10 for Iancho to pick Maryland. And Landis, what are we going to do if Maryland winds up with 2 of the best 4 players in the country in this class?
Wonder if it's enough to save Mike Loxley's job. Maybe like that's a key part of this. But it's the thing, like, whenever people have the conversation, right, about like sleeping giants or whatever in college football, Maryland often comes up because of this. We mentioned Chase Young and Dylan Stewart. Caleb Williams is from DC, right? Like, there are guys like this every single year in the DMV, which is where the University of Maryland is, by the way. Like, Zion Ely's from Baltimore. That's not quite the DMV, but that DC, Maryland, Virginia area always has dudes, always has highly rated 5-star top 100 guys. And if Maryland ever got to a place where it could, I'm not even say keep all of them, just like keep some of them. Like, Stephon Diggs was that. And they did that's like a couple years ago, but they don't do it often. They do it sometimes. And if it can ever become a regular thing, like, watch out, because that area is, I mean, like, outside of like California, Georgia, like Texas, like the very obvious ones, and people know this, but it's incredibly fertile recruiting ground, and it's been that way for a very long time. It's incredibly important to the North, not just Maryland. But Maryland, if it can get its ducks in a row and figure out the NIL piece of it and be competitive against some of these schools from the SEC in particular to keep some of these guys home, then it's program changing. So, like, the kid Zion Ely is great. And St. Francis in Baltimore is a program that has guys like that quite often. And then Emmanuel Iancho, like in that DMV area, those are guys you got to keep home. So if they keep both of them, great. I'll wonder in the back of my head the entire time, like, this is awesome. Tell me who the head coach is next year, and we'll see if they actually sign. But even to get them now to generate some momentum, like, it would be no small thing for Maryland as it tries to build its 2026 class.
In the class of 2025, Maryland wound up with the 25th best class, which is really good for Maryland. And that was headlined by Malik Washington, who was the number 5 quarterback in the country, the number 54 player, who was a Maryland kid who stayed home. And they got him in that class and kind of shaped the class around him. They have Ely in this class. They're trying to shape the class around him. By the reporting, it feels like Iancho, like, could commit in June, maybe, which would be pretty early enough to, like, help form a class around him. And then this is one of these things. We've had a lot of conversations about Damon Evans, the Maryland athletic director, and Mike Loxley, the Maryland head football coach. This, like, it's coaches do save jobs this way. You can't.
Yep.
Like, often I think when if the record's iffy, if the recruiting falls off, that can be the death knell. That can be the end for a coach. But if you have an iffy year on the field, they've only had one iffy year. They had a bad year last year, but I think a lot of people, including us, saw it coming. If you're recruiting like crazy, you can't get rid of that guy. You can't get rid of, like, Mike Loxley, because I don't think there's any guarantee that the next coach and the next staff would be able to keep all that together. So if Mike Loxley, who has established a winning program at Maryland and does have a recruiting pedigree, he has been a good recruiter for a long time. If he and his staff are really making it work with local kids, and it can make sense to me in this world. Not going to be an expert on the NIL situation at Maryland, but if this is one of those things where Zion Ely and Emmanuel Iancho, like, for every other school they're looking at, they are one of the priorities. For Maryland, they are the priorities. And that's not just feeling love from the hometown school. That could be in, like, we're spending all our NIL on you guys. And if Maryland's like, well, we're all our NIL's there, and that Bama and Tennessee and Auburn and Oregon and Ohio State and Penn State and everybody else who's coming after them, they're trying to fit them into the mix. Can't that work? And if Loxley and his staff are getting this done, how can you break that up? Even though all last season we constantly talked about how Damon Evans would go on radio shows and be like, it's not good enough.
Yeah, you just sparked something. No, you just sparked something in my mind that I don't know if it's where we want to go with this conversation. I would say like the only way you break it up is if you think there's somebody who can do it even better and more regularly. And for the last 90 seconds, all I've been thinking about is Maryland head coach Deion Sanders.
Oh my God. Why are you exploding?
Deion, who doesn't want to leave Boulder to go recruit? Well, guess what, brother? If you were in Maryland, you wouldn't have to leave. they're all right there.
Oh my God. Now this could be, and again, not experts on this. Under Armour developed at Maryland like this.
Isn't Deion an Under Armour guy? Or is he? I guess he's a Nike guy. He's a Nike guy.
What are you doing? Are you just trying to you're making our clip and making a clip for us now, Deion? This is one of like, even people can aggregate this.
Oh, he has like a bad relationship with Under Armour, maybe.
Oh, that actually, I mean, like, who knows?
But he used to be an Under Armour guy.
I mean, the Under Armour founders, like Maryland is Under Armour as you can get. Maryland right now is known for two things. You know what the two things Maryland's known for? Under Armour and the Muppets, because you know Jim Henson created Kermit at Maryland. You know that, right?
This is yes. Here's a quote about we're doing it. Here's a quote from Deion Sanders about Kevin Plank, who started Under Armour when he decided to go back to Nike when he got to Colorado. I love Kevin Plank so much for what he's done for me, my youth programs, and just through the years when no one would help. He stepped out and he did it by going to Jackson and changing the whole dynamic of all the sports wearing Under Armour stuff. Deion Sanders is your next head coach at Maryland. Okay, what are we talking about else? What else is on the show?
I was trying to talk about that Muppet NIL money that's going to transform Maryland athletics, but you interjected by putting Deion in College Park. Okay. Well, it's been a nice run for Mike Loxley is as Maryland as it gets. Like Mike Loxley almost got Dwayne Haskins. You know, like it's
well, that's why he got the job. They were hoping that he could. Yeah, they hired him because they wanted him to unlock it, and because his predecessors couldn't quite do it. And I think like he's done a better job. But there's another level with the right person.
But what if he's like right on the verge of unlocking it right now? That like he couldn't unlock it overnight. But now that everything has changed and there actually is like a financial business association with Maryland that can actually help them more. You know, I don't know, Minnesota and Rutgers don't have an Under Armour like this. When he's on the verge of doing it, now you're ready to usher him out the door. Like he does this well. There's a lot that Mike Loxley does well. I don't know. Okay. Well, okay.
But don't you want Deion? God. Don't you want Prime? Don't you want Prime?
We already got Deion in the North, though. If Deion was at Auburn, I'd be like, get Deion to Maryland. But he's a Colorado. Oh, okay.
Prime,
wow.
Come shake
You just
up
blew up
the
the show.
Yeah.
Blew up this show.
We want to see James Franklin go to USC. Put Deion Sanders in Maryland.
And then you'll put Deion Sanders at Penn State 2 years after that. So like, okay, let's talk about the Clemson invasion. We put Dabo on the cover of the YouTube show with our other Northern coaches because Clemson is a coming. 12 commits in the class of 2026. Five of 12 are from the North, including 2 in Ohio. Right? What's Dabo doing here?
Dabo's he's pounding the pavement. He's getting out there. Yeah, he has 5 from the North. Wide receiver Connor Samlin is from the Bullis School in Maryland, Potomac, Maryland. 4-star prospect, number 189 overall. Offensive tackle Adam Guthrie from Ohio, number 244 overall. He had an Ohio State offer, and Clemson got him. Caden Gephardt, another safety from Ohio, also had an Ohio State offer. Clemson got him. Number 405 overall, 4-star prospect. And then he went into Kansas and got an offensive lineman, Braden Wilms from Lawrence, 3-star kid, number 523 overall. And then out of Huntington, West Virginia, tight end Tavian Wilson, number 684 overall. So he's got 2 from Ohio, 1 from Maryland, 1 from Kansas, and 1 from West Virginia in this class that is currently ranked number 2 in the country.
Is Dabo just getting to work again? Like Clemson's back? I mean, most of the Dabo stuff was like, oh, they weren't working the portal. Now they're doing the portal a little bit, but also like they're doing this.
It seems like maybe it seems like they've got some juice back a little bit. I guess I would say like they're the number 2 class in the country right now with 12 commits. They don't have a commit inside the top 100, so it's not like they're loading up on like super high end 4-stars and 5-star prospects. I think they're just more. It's probably better to say that like they're just off to a nice start with their class, but he's also doing it while Clemson has had a presence in Ohio. They got Blake Miller out of Ohio. They got Jackson Carmen out of Ohio. They're recruiting Blake Miller's brother, Storm Miller, who's a linebacker. Or maybe I think he's in this class, the 2026 class. So like, it's not like they're doing something out of the ordinary. I just took note of the fact that Clemson in the South has almost half of its class from the North at the moment, which is a little interesting / concerning.
And is it that I always assume a lot of the stuff when you're gathering early, sometimes are you gathering local guys, right? The local guys that you want, they know you want you. But so to have 5 Northern kids in your first 12, that's like you're putting in work. Now, the other thing we'll have to see is, and we'll double check on this, do these 5 Northern kids all stay in this class? Or do Northern schools flip in the next couple
I'll be
months?
interested to see if Ohio State specifically still comes after Adam Guthrie and Caden Gephardt. But yeah, and then like the kid, there's like in Lawrence, like this Kansas try to put up a fight there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely something to monitor with that. Can I mention USC here too? Where we're talking about schools doing annoying things.
Are you talking about colleges? Yeah. Coaches.
So
coaches.
The top 2 recruiting classes right now in the 24/7 composite team ratings are USC and Clemson. Clemson has 5 of 12 from the North, and USC has 4 of 14 from the North in its class. It has a running back from Ohio, Sean Alston. It has an edge from Chicago, Braden Jones. It has a offensive lineman from Utah, Asun Tafa. And it has a quarterback from Frankfort, Illinois, which I think is a Chicago suburb, right? Lincoln Way East is a Chicago suburb. Jonas Williams is their quarterback in that class. So for some reason, Bambi got froggy and decided he was going to come hunt players in the Midwest.
We can't talk about Jim Henson and Kermit and then have you say Bambi got froggy, because now I'm thinking about if Maryland, because John's in the chat asking like, why aren't there the frogs instead of the terrapins? And like the Maryland frogs actually would be great. Again, there's a statue of Kermit on the Maryland campus. All I can think of now is Kermit punching Bambi in the face, like that little deer. Like if Maryland and they did last year. Maryland's only Big Ten win, right? 29-28 over USC. Kermit punched Bambi right in the face.
Great win. Yeah.
And Disney does own the Muppet properties now, so that's not cross-pollination. Like you could actually make something. If we could get Disney, I think, to draw us a cartoon of Kermit punching Bambi in the face every time Maryland does anything to USC. All right. That's enough USC talk for me. But now we're going to talk about them a little bit more, because we're going to talk about quarterbacks. 11 of the top 20 quarterbacks in the class of 26 are currently committed, but only 2 of them are committed to the North. And I used to be like very anxious about this kind of thing. This to me felt like the area where the Big Ten and the North would most often fall behind the South. Tennessee, Texas, Houston, USC, Arizona State, Oklahoma, Miami, Texas A&M, Florida all have top 20 quarterbacks committed. The only 2 Northern schools who have a top 20 quarterback committed, Notre Dame has Noah Grubbs from Florida, and Penn State has Troy Hune from California. Now, we also have some other Northern schools. Good job by Michigan State. They have Cade Kaufman, who's a Michigan kid, who's the number 25 quarterback. They got him in the house. Corin Berry from California. Boston College has him. He's the number 31 quarterback. Bill O'Brien doing early work, getting a commit from a number 31 quarterback who's from California. That's good work by Bill O'Brien. You'll take that. Michael Clayton from Florida, number 36 quarterback, is committed to Illinois. Cash Herrera from California, number 38 quarterback, is committed to Iowa. And again, like if Iowa has any kind of quarterback plan, that's great. Owen Lansu from Illinois, number 42 quarterback, is committed to Minnesota. And then Tommy Carr from Michigan, number 49 quarterback, is committed to Maryland. But here's the thing, Landis.
Is that a Lloyd Carr relative?
I don't know. Can you look that up? Can you look up if Tommy Carr is if the Lloyd Carr family is just like they're not going to Michigan? I don't know. Well, it's probably because Michigan has Bryce Underwood. My God, if you have Bryce Underwood and Jaden Davis,
he must be. Is he CJ's brother? Must be CJ's brother. Yeah, okay. He's CJ Carr's brother. Yeah.
Michigan's good. Michigan's got it covered at quarterback though. They're okay. So yes, spread the joy in the North. CJ Carr to Notre Dame, where he might win the starting job this year, and Tommy Carr to Maryland as a commit. I just think maybe this is the number one area where the portal's going to help the North. And when we look at Will Howard leading Ohio State,
Tommy Carr is committed to Miami, Ohio, not Maryland.
Oh, I got the wrong M.
Get the wrong M.
Got the wrong frog. What did I do? Come on, show me that graphic. Look at that M. That's the same color.
I was like scrolling through this thing, looking for the Maryland logo, wondering what the heck you were talking about.
We got a lot of red. We got a lot of M's. Come on. Look, you see the logo on that graph on the graphic on the recruiting chart. Look at this M behind me on the Maryland banner. That's a very similar M.
They are the same letter. That is correct.
That's not just a. There's only 26. There's 26 letters in the alphabet, right? Only 26 letters in the alphabet. It's not a lot to work with.
That's true.
All right. So you don't want to do 19 minutes on Tommy Carr committing to Miami of Ohio and what it means.
I mean, that seems legacy. Like a pretty good get, I think, for a MAC program.
Yes. Chuck Martin getting work done. Chuck Martin, Lloyd Carr, I'm sure go back. They probably worked together back in the past. Yeah. Anyway, I used to be very anxious about the North falling behind in quarterback recruiting. But does it not matter anymore? Because when Will Howard came in the portal and Riley Leonard to Notre Dame came in the portal and Dylan Gabriel to Oregon came in the portal and Fernando Mendoza this year and Curtis Rourke last year came to Indiana in the portal, and all these situations where teams are going to – now, listen, again, Avery Johnson at Kansas State and Rocco Becht at Iowa State and Drew Aller at Penn State. We certainly can run through enough guys who have committed to the North out of high school. But I look at that and I think, oh, man, 11-2 among top 20 quarterback commits right now. But should I not? Should I not be worried about it because the North will figure out quarterback in the portal?
Probably less worried about it because I do think you're right. The portal helps you balance it out. But I also I look at it, right, and I see like the USC has a quarterback commitment from Illinois, even though there are multiple quarterbacks from California who are rated higher. Like, go get those guys, Lincoln Riley, and let Illinois get Jonas Williams from Chicago to be its quarterback. Or Penn State has Troy Huhn from California, but there's a quarterback from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, who's rated a little bit higher than him. And Penn State actually does that quite a bit. Like, there are highly rated quarterbacks in the state of Pennsylvania who they don't take, and then they take guys from Ohio or California or Florida or wherever. It's kind of interesting strategy that Penn State has there. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, it's not like there aren't options available in the North. There are. They're just leaving for whatever reason. So I like to see a better job done there. But then, yes, generally, I think there's a kid from Utah committed to Texas A&M. Who's the 14th ranked quarterback in the class. I'd like to see some better work done there, but you can also make up for the portal. So I wouldn't stress about it as much as I would have, 4 years ago.
Yeah. Super interested in what comes next at quarterback for Penn State. They have Ethan Grunkmeyer, who's been there for a year, who's an Ohio kid, but like they didn't get Matt Zollers in the recruiting class last year, who was a Pennsylvania kid who wound up at Missouri. So I do think the North has done with the guys I just listed and more. They've done, and we've run through it, hey, whatever it was, 18 of 28 quarterbacks last year were transfers into the North, that kind of thing. So we're accustomed to that. Max Brosmer, great. But also you like it when you have the transfer and the recruit. So I still would like the North to make some noise in quarterback recruiting, maybe a little bit more than they are right now in the class of 2026, but I'm not as panicked about it as I would have been in years past. All right, let's do some other North-South trends. We like when we're talking about North kids who are going south and why that happened. And is there listen, here's the thing too. One kid, one choice, one life, one shot at this, one opportunity. Best of luck to every single high school football player, every single high school athlete, every single high school student who is making a very personal college choice. We are viewing it from the standpoint of, are the northern schools, the staffs, the personnel people, the coaches, the recruiters, the NIL, doing everything they can do to create situations for good players, north and south, who want to play for northern schools. That's all. But we like north going south. We like south going north. Why don't you run us through some of the ones that you found so far? Kids that really, is it top 250?
Top 250, yeah.
Top 250. You found 6 southern kids coming north and 4 northern kids going south. What's most interesting there?
Yeah, like Oregon doing some work, which I think we're going to talk about in a second, but they have a 5-star tight end from North Carolina. They have a high 4-star running back from Texas, heading to Eugene. Nebraska went into Florida, got a 4-star cornerback named, or has, I shouldn't say got because they're not signed yet, but has a commitment from 4-star cornerback CJ Brana, who's number 129 overall. Rutgers going to Virginia to get a top 200 running back.
Nice.
Desir Carter. And then Noah Grubbs, quarterback, committed to Notre Dame out of Florida. So, and then the other one was Thomas Davis Jr., whose father was an all-pro linebacker for the Carolina Panthers, going to committed to Notre Dame currently. So those are the 6. 2 to Oregon, 2 to Notre Dame, 1 to Nebraska, 1 to Rutgers. And then the north to south guys, we touched on the 2 that are going to Clemson. And then there are 2 currently committed to Texas A&M. Quarterback from Utah, Helaman Kasuna, and defensive lineman from New Jersey, Jermaine Kinsler, number 208 overall, committed to Texas A&M.
Okay. So is this like, is this enough? Is this enough of southern kids coming north? Like we're giving tip of the cap to Rutgers and that kind of thing? Or do we need to see more?
I mean, yeah, I'd always love to see more. I think maybe as long as that number is higher than the number of kids go, the thing is like the pool is much larger, right? So like anytime a kid from the north goes to the south, like it's a real hit, because there are just fewer players of this ilk in this part of the country. So if you can have more, which currently is the case, of kids from the south heading north. So right now there's 6 doing that, and there's only 4 from the north going south. I think that's kind of all you can ask for, is that number is a little higher for the south kids going north.
Okay. This is just, I didn't know what to make of this, but I just found it
fascinating,
interesting with this Kansas stuff here. Kansas in the class of 2026 has 7 of the top 11 Kansas players committed. So according to 24/7 Sports Composite, the 11 best high school recruits in the class in the state of Kansas, 7 are committed to Kansas, 1 is committed to Clemson, 3 are uncommitted. Last year in the class of 2025, this is where the best players in Kansas went. Michigan got the best one. Andrew Babalola, an offensive tackle, went to Michigan. So it was Michigan, Kansas State, Tennessee, Nebraska, Florida, Nebraska, Missouri, Kansas State. Kansas didn't get one till the number 9 guy. And then Kansas got the number 13 guy and the number 17 guy. But there were 18 players listed, and Kansas only got 3 of them. 3 of the best 18 in the class that just signed. But now they have 7 of the top 11 this year. And they have like a pretty veteran roster right now. They're going to lose a bunch of guys. But Landis, I am super intrigued at a time when both Kansas and Kansas State football are in a very good spot right now. That the in-state recruiting, like Kansas is shutting out Kansas State, the state of Kansas, in the class of 2026. I'm not going to pretend I know the Kansas State strategy. Maybe they're going out a little bit, but still you don't want to ignore the guys in your backyard, and Lance Leipold's locking it down. Yeah,
good for Lance. It also seems like maybe I want to go back and look through the years now. There's been an uptick in 4-star prospects in the state generally, because there were, I think, like 8 4- and 5-star prospects last year. There's 4 or 5 this year. That I don't know that I would have assumed that about the state of Kansas necessarily. So that it's happening, 1, and that 2, that the Kansas is doing a nice job of keeping most of those guys home is great. I guess like Kansas State got Lincoln Cure, right? So they have the trump card of the last 2 years over Kansas. But it would be pretty cool, I think, if like there becomes if we get some pretty competitive in-state recruitments out of those 2 programs, if that state is on the rise too in terms of generating talent.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by it. I mean, there's just like a kid, for instance, an offensive tackle in late January, Caden Snyder, who's one of the best kids in Kansas, 4-star recruit, pick Kansas, had offers from Kansas State, Arkansas, Duke, some other classes like that. So it's not, I don't think it's that Kansas State's like doesn't want any of these guys, right? So I don't know. Good for Kansas. All right, last one is Oregon, which you had kind of talked about. 9 commits for Oregon, 4 of them in the top 100, and the 4 top 100 players they have are from North Carolina, California, Texas, and Oregon. If I were to say how many college football programs are truly national brands in recruiting, how many would you say?
Probably 7 or 8.
And the ones from the north would be Ohio State and Notre Dame, for sure. Probably Michigan.
Well, I would say those 3, but yeah, I would say Oregon is, yeah.
And now, but there's no doubt about it. Not that this is news. It's not Doug dropping a bomb. Oregon national recruiting brand, but it's reinforcing it. And again, that Oregon's losing so many players. I think they only have 10 of their top 30 back, but they're filling so many holes in the portal. It's not only, we're going to end up, when we talk about Oregon's roster in 2025, we're going to talk about the portal a ton. Just like we did, last year when we were talking about, I was trying to think, I forgot to do this on the trade show. Last year, we did a trade show on Monday, college football trades. One of the trades I made last year, you traded Dante Moore again this year, right? You traded Dante Moore.
No, I wanted to, but I didn't do it.
Oh, I traded Dante Moore last year. And the trade I made last year was Dante Moore to Cincinnati, I think with somebody else for Dante Corleone, the Godfather, to give Oregon a defensive tackle. And then they didn't have to do that because they just got Derek Harmon from Michigan State in the spring portal. And Derek Harmon played like a first-round pick. And so it was like, again, like these trades actually happen. They're just not trades. But like Oregon's, I think it's worth reinforcing that Oregon is taking both approaches. It's not an either or situation at Oregon. It's a both. And I don't think we've seen the best of Oregon. I don't know how good they're going to be this year. I don't know. But the best of Oregon, I think, is yet to come. Yes?
I don't know. I think I probably would agree with that. Yeah. I just think it is a tough situation when you do want to be the best of both. Can you actually? I think is a fair question. Because as Oregon continues to load up with transfers, like then what are those kids that you recruit out of high school do?
Yes.
Do they stick around and develop, or do they go elsewhere? Like that's the balance that Oregon is trying to strike. And if it ever pushes them to the position where like they really are a program that just is reloading every single year through the portal, I just think you're more susceptible to dips when you do that. So we'll see. I'm not saying like Oregon's going to fall off a cliff, but maybe in 5 years, we would look back and say like 2024 Oregon was the peak. I think that's possible.
Okay. I'm curious. And it's hard. It's funny. It's like, we want Oregon to kind of get off. I don't know. I talk out of both sides of my mouth with this portal stuff. On one hand, it's like, I think we sort of want Oregon to get off the quarterback portal carousel. On the other hand, one of the reasons I'm not sure about Oregon this year is because they don't have a veteran portal quarterback who I know what he's going to do. They just have a super talented young guy who is a portal guy because he went to UCLA, but it's not the same as getting Dylan Gabriel or Bo Nix. It's like, what do I want? It's like, I feel good about Indiana because they got Fernando Mendoza, but do I think that should be the plan for Indiana long term? No, they want to develop guys like Tyler Cherry and like the young quarter. I don't know. It is in March. Adding an established portal quarterback really makes you feel good about a team in March.
It does. Yes.
By August, your mind might change. You'd be like, no, develop your own guys, young guys on the way up. But right now, Fernando Mendoza makes me feel warm inside.
And he should. Like, I think it's not, I probably speak too definitively about it too, because we're still gathering data on exactly what all this looks like. So, but because it's new, it kind of makes me nervous. So we'll see, but it's not, maybe also in 5 years, we're like, like building through the portal's fine. Like there's no issue with it. Right. So we'll see. And to the point of Oregon and quarterbacks, they are like squarely in the mix for Jared Curtis, who's the number 1 quarterback in this 2026 class. So maybe they'll get him. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Little recruiting. I could touch on recruiting. Recruiting still matters, but let's do win totals. Everybody in the North, if you're watching, if you're listening, we'll mention your team in the next half hour because we will run through all 28 Northern win totals next on Kings of the North.
We can't hear you.
Doug, we can hear you. I don't know if you can hear us. I think your microphone died.
We're gonna talk about win totals eventually when Doug gets his mic back working. We did this last year, and I think these win totals came out a little later for us this year than they did last year. But now we have all 28. We ran through it a couple weeks ago, picking like what did we pick, Mike? We picked like 5 we liked, including one that was a Southern pick. So now we have them for all 28 of our teams, courtesy of FanDuel, and the plan is to run through them all by total number of wins.
Yeah, we can run through the ones that you guys picked. I have them right here.
Let's see. Episode a couple weeks ago.
Doug went under 9.5 wins for Alabama, which seems typical. Doug also went under 7.5 wins for USC. Doug and Bill together, you guys both went Iowa State under 7.5 wins. Doug and Bill also went together over 7.5 wins for Iowa. So a little bit of the Hawkeye State you guys did. Doug and Bill also agreed Michigan over 8.5 wins. Bill, you went Florida under 6.5 wins.
Mm-hmm.
You also went over 8.5 wins for Miami. And I believe those were the ones we had a couple weeks ago. So those are the ones that we went with. Let's see. Doug is still trying to get it. I guess, Bill, tell us about why you guys think the under on Iowa State, but the over on Iowa.
It was for Iowa State, it's what they were losing. I think roster wise, and the Big 12 is kind of hard to peg. And then Iowa, I think, had a friendly schedule to get over that. Those numbers, I think, remain the same too. And like this updated batch of numbers that we got for Iowa State. Yeah. So that was all the same.
7.5. Yep.
Yeah. So, and even the Michigan number that I think we both like too is at 8.5 from the last time we talked about it. So I think it was all schedule driven for me. There's actually some interesting ones in this new batch that we got too that like I'm like sort of fascinated by when you look at the schedule. So Iowa State a little more roster driven probably than anything else, losing those 2 receivers especially. But the other guys, like I think the Big Ten just kind of gave them a little bit of a break in terms of hitting the number, which seems a bit off for like Iowa and Michigan.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, especially with Iowa State. I mean, with the quarterback situation being certain there, you know what I mean? It's kind of interesting to pick an under 7.5 for Iowa State when you got Rocco Beck coming back. You would think with a veteran quarterback in the leadership, maybe that would be something that Iowa State would be good. But like you said, they lost so much. I think this spring will be interesting to see with them too, to see kind of who steps up, who is one of those guys they can, maybe fill the void of losing Noel and Higgins, as Doug is going to leave the studio. I'm not sure what happened with this microphone. It was just like all of a sudden, just
very strange,
gone. Yeah,
very strange. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see too. Like Iowa State could be a team that maybe looks at receiver in the portal more coming out of spring practice too, that might make us rethink that. I think Big 12 win totals in general are pretty tricky, which is why like a lot, BYU, Iowa, Iowa State, Kansas, and Utah, all the teams we talk about in the Big 12 all have the same win total number. And then there's a batch in the group on like there's not a whole lot of variance in the win totals with that league, which makes it hard and perhaps a bit dangerous to try to pick one. But when you lose NFL caliber receivers, I think you lean a little bit toward the under there. Doug, are you back with the working microphone?
Is that a sign from the gods that
there we
people
go.
are tired of my voice?
Yeah, maybe.
And that's how his career ended. One day his microphone just turned off and we never heard from him again. Sorry about that. That was weird. It was like still showing that I had mic signals on my audio box, but it wasn't happening on the show.
That's live TV. That's what we do.
It's live TV.
We fill and we go.
All right, let's do full win totals. You want to do full win totals for everybody?
Let's do it. Yep.
10.5 at the top. There's 4 teams at the top. We did a whole giant segment previously on this. Of the 28 Northern teams, 10.5 wins for Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State, and Oregon. Bill, we talked about this before. We kind of like Notre Dame the best of going over 10.5, and we were kind of on Oregon under 10.5 the most. I don't think we have to revisit this a ton because we've given a lot of time to it, but there's nobody at 9.5 So the drop off in the North is these 4 at 10.5, and then we have 3 teams at 8.5. This is a clear top 4. And again, schedule matters, returning players matter, reputation matters, but it's interesting to me how stark the divide is.
Yes, it is weird that there's no in between. I am maybe a little more toward the under for Oregon too, after some other conversations we've had since that initial win total. But yeah, these are the clear top 4, no doubt about it. I thought maybe Michigan would be in between, but they're not. They're on that next tier with a couple other teams.
They're not. So then our next tier at 8.5 is 3 teams. It's Indiana, Kansas State, and Michigan. You and I have already been on the record of this 8.5 total for Michigan was out before, and we both took the over. I think maybe this will move to 9 or 9.5 by the time we get to the season and things round into form with Michigan. This is a lot of public perception and that kind of thing. If you're just looking at Michigan and like they had a bad year last year, although I don't know that a lot of people are doing that because they beat Ohio State and Alabama to end the year. But there's just a consistent depth of talent on the defense, and they have quarterback solved 2 different ways. Do you think this line will move on Michigan?
Yep, I do. It's just like, again, like the same conversation we had, but like it's hard for me to look at that schedule and feel very good about 4 losses. 2, sure, the Oklahoma game is gonna be tough. The Ohio State game is gonna be tough, but aside from that, I think you're asking an awful lot out of Michigan's opponents to get that team to finish 8-4. So I would not be surprised at all if people start betting this heavy and it moves. Yeah, assuming win totals move. Win totals do move that way, right? Like game lines.
I think so.
Yeah. I think it'll go up. I also don't know why Indiana's there.
You don't know why?
Well, I guess I'm surprised Indiana's there.
Indiana is a changed program. I think there are so many indications. I think both substantively and from a perception standpoint that this is not a one-off for Indiana. It's not. And I think getting Fernando Mendoza as a transfer quarterback is a huge part of that, but they have like their 2 best receivers back. They've fortified on the offensive line a little bit. Like some real dudes back. Aiden Fisher and D'Angelo Pons both back on that defense, right? Like there's a lot.
Back too, isn't he?
What's that? McCall Kamara,
yeah.
Like their best defensive players are back. I think we came away from the end of last season with Indiana being like, is this? And we had said, I think the discussion on this show was Indiana is officially in the 2nd tier of the Big Ten. And if we think that the top tier is Oregon, Penn State, and Ohio State, and probably Michigan they're just won the national title. Michigan deserves to be up there. This is confirmation that Indiana is in the 2nd tier of the Big Ten, perhaps leading the 2nd tier of the Big Ten, if you think of Michigan as the 1st tier. And every time I look at them, they play Penn State and they play Oregon. But it's not that it's easy. Like last year, it's like, I think if the people were like, well, they went 11-1, but their schedule was easy. Oregon and Penn State, and then like Iowa, Illinois, their non-conference is easy. Is sure. Michigan State revived at all? It's not an easy Big Ten schedule. People believe in the Hoosiers, man. You know what I did though? I was in another candy store the other day. I restocked.
Oh, nice.
Restock.
Nice.
Now, if I thought that this was a one-off and I would not need to be smoking candy cigarettes in 2025, would I have restocked at the candy store? This is getting me jonesing. I'm going to light up here in March, Landis. People believe in the Hoosiers.
Maybe it's a me problem. I just need to recalibrate and embrace the fact that Indiana is firmly in that 2nd tier in the Big Ten. But there's not like, I think it should be 7.5 maybe, because there's Illinois, because you have Illinois at Iowa, at Oregon, at Penn State, and it's like, I mean, I would pick Indiana right now to beat Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Purdue. But like, I don't know what Wisconsin's going to be. It's a slightly higher than I was envisioning.
I mean, 8.5 is like giving Indiana the benefit of the doubt in every benefit of the doubt game. That's like, okay, well, they're going to lose. If you think they're going to lose to Indiana, they're going to lose to Penn State and Oregon. But then Illinois, Iowa, Michigan State, Wisconsin, all those other games, we're only going to lose one more game. That's a lot of confidence.
It is.
So I'm here for it. But I think we have to accept this. And then Kansas State's the favorite in the Big 12. And again, like looking at Kansas State, you start to go down the road with them and you're like, yeah, this is a good team. I think this is legit. I don't quibble with 8.5 for Kansas State. Do you?
No, I don't. Makes sense.
7.5 is a giant group. I don't know what to make of this group.
Our largest group.
BYU, Illinois, Iowa, Iowa State, Kansas, Nebraska, Utah, and Washington. We're already on record taking the Iowa over 7.5 and the Iowa State under 7.5. BYU here intrigues me because they are an absolute legit Big 12 contender. And why aren't they more than 7.5 wins if that's the case? Is it just because the Big 12 is so nuts and hard to get a handle on that you just don't want to go too high?
I think maybe with BYU and with Illinois, there is some like we don't have a great feel for what this team actually is because they won a lot of close or weird games in 2024. So we like to be trying to account for that variance and what that might look like in 2025, I think is why these two teams are here, because I definitely did a double take at Illinois at 7.5, given like what we know of that schedule like that. But then I look at the schedule like, well, I guess these like 5 games could be toss-ups too, if you want to be fair. So like I get it. I think I would take it over. But
are they going to lose all the toss-ups?
No. But if they lose, they could lose 4 of them, I guess. If they lost 4 of them, they would be.
So, but honestly, 7.5 wins. I would go hit these today. This is not a betting show. I glance at BYU's schedule. I see 8 wins without hesitation. And I glance at Illinois' schedule. I see 7 wins without hesitation. So then they're going to lose every other game. They're going to lose every close game. I think it's a misread. I think it's a misread of where BYU and Illinois are, and maybe people not wanting to embrace. Why are we embracing last year for Indiana? It's only a 1-win difference, I guess. But to me, like, why would you believe what Indiana did last year and be like, yeah, 8.5, and not believe what Illinois and BYU did last year? I believe it. I believe what BYU and Illinois did, and they both have a lot back.
They do, but Illinois and BYU, I think, probably have more continuity than Indiana does too, right? That's like an interesting experiment there, what you believe in more. Continuity of a roster that won 10 games, or a team that won 11 games but had to rebuild through the portal a little bit more. I think I feel better. I don't think I do. I feel better about BYU and Illinois hitting their over here than I do Indiana, just based off the roster continuity. And
I'm just telling you, there's nothing in the schedule. There's nothing. This 7. If you believe in Illinois and BYU, there's nothing in their schedules that would scare you away from the over here, right? They're like, oh, well, I didn't realize that BYU was playing, at Arizona State, and they're playing Texas in the non-conference. Like, that's not what it is. We already covered that. BYU, Arizona State, and Kansas State don't play each other this year. So BYU, you're going 7.5. They have 3 winnable non-conference games, and they don't play the 2 other best teams in the Big 12, and you're setting it at 7.5. I think that's crazy. So I really like the BYU and Illinois over a lot here. Nebraska, like, we're waiting. I was over the total for Nebraska last year when that was wrong. Are you Nebraska, Cincinnati, Akron, and I think, is it Howard? Is their 3rd game?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Are we like, I don't think there's anything from the schedule scaring us away from Nebraska, but like this is just odd. Why is Nebraska in the same group as BYU and Illinois? It's like, that's what I'm going to take away from this.
Yeah. That's what's hard to square. It is Cincinnati, Akron, and is that Houston Christian?
Oh, I apologize. Houston Christian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I touched that stove and got burned by it last year, so I don't know that I would go there again. But it just, like, generally seeing these teams lined up next to each other doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't think, like, BYU is a Big 12 contender. Illinois is like a sleepy playoff pick. Why are they on the same line as really any of these other teams? Yeah. But especially like a Nebraska. I think Nebraska and Utah are kind of odd, and Iowa State kind of odd in this grouping here.
And Nebraska does play Michigan and Penn State. That's 2 tough games. Then again, like, you get in the mix here, Iowa, USC, Minnesota, Michigan State. Like there's just that big patch. And this is what we all got to do. Like you figure out, well, these are the teams I believe in. So then that affects everybody else's schedule. So do you believe in Michigan State? Do you believe in USC? Do you believe in Minnesota? That's going to affect how you view the Nebraska schedule. And then Utah, I would maybe think like Utah's a school, given what happened last year, that maybe you could say, I'm going to try to make some money on Utah this year, but then 7.5 seems pretty high. Given how poorly last year went, I would have thought maybe this could be 6.5, and it's not.
If it were 6.5, I think I would want to bet it. Yeah, 7.5 feels high. If you factor in like there's change at Utah with the new offense, new quarterback, all that stuff. Like does Kyle Whittingham still have it? All that kind of stuff, and then like the inherent sort of variance that seems to exist in the Big 12 too. Like I like Utah. I think Utah could be sneaky, but I don't know that I'd want to bet on it necessarily at a 7.5 kind of thing.
This is wild.
Not a betting show, but
and Utah plays Kansas State, BYU, and Arizona State, and they're at UCLA to open the season in the non-conference. Just that it's like a Power 4 game. It's not like they have 3 gimme non-conferences, and BYU doesn't play Kansas State or Arizona State, and BYU and Utah have the same win total. Is crazy to me. Doesn't make any sense.
Utah also plays Texas Tech.
Doesn't make any sense. What are we doing here? Okay, this is
at Baylor. This is a tough schedule.
Yeah, so I would hit the BYU and Illinois overs here, and I would be thinking about, as much as we think Utah bounce back. Like I think if Utah bounces back with a first-year offensive coordinator and a first-year quarterback and trying to get everything back in shape, like if they go 7-5, that's a pretty nice bounce back. Are we
7-5 make a bowl game? Yeah, I don't. I'm having a hard time finding eight wins I feel really good about on this schedule.
We did a big segment on the 10.5 win club. I think we could do a whole show on the 7.5 win club. BYU, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Iowa State, Nebraska, Utah, Washington. I already said that I'm curious about Washington. So this is an interesting group. All right, the other group, last group that's projected to have a winning record with the over-under, the 6.5 wins. 3 teams: Cincinnati, Colorado, Minnesota. Minnesota perpetually underrated. I think it was 4.5 last year. And I said, hit that over, and that cleared easily. Who jumps out here for you?
Minnesota, maybe. I think you and I like the vibes at Minnesota. Maybe they think they kind of like refound their footing last year. Without even like going through the schedule to count them up, I just think like it's another step forward year maybe for Minnesota. And 6.5 feels a little low. If that's going to be the case. So they were the one that jumped out at me first among this group.
Yeah, so Minnesota, their toughest non-conference game is at Cal. But they definitely could go 3-0 in the non-conference. They get Rutgers at home. That could be 4, Purdue 5, Northwestern 6. And then they've got to win one more game. They do play Ohio State and Oregon at both those teams. But I just think Minnesota is a 7 or 8 win team. I would have no hesitation about Minnesota here. And then like Colorado is fascinating to be like Caden Salter is a transfer quarterback. How much do they keep the juice with Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders gone? Again, like this is what is the rest of the Colorado tenure of Deion Sanders going to look like? He's going to be there for the next decade and really establish something there? Or is this like maybe you're surprised he even stuck around for year 3, but like, are they going to keep it going? I don't know that I would want to get involved either way with Colorado. I'm very, very, very curious. And then Cincinnati, I think, was better than a 5-7 team last year. But this again, that they were 5-7, and now they've got to win 7 to hit their over. I'm almost like, oh wow, this is like a lot of confidence in Cincinnati. But they do have Dante Corleone and some good defenders back. They have Brendan Sorsby back. They have Joe Royer back at tight end. They have a decent offensive line back. I think like this. I would rather this be 5.5 and take it over on Cincinnati. I'm not sure about the 6.5.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Colorado is interesting here. Just looking at the schedule now. Interesting non-conference game. We haven't really talked about it against Georgia Tech on a Friday night to open the season. But they don't play Kansas. They don't play Texas Tech. They don't play Baylor. They don't play Arizona State. I know they do play Arizona State, sorry. But they don't play Baylor, Texas Tech, or Kansas. I don't know. That feels like a 7-8 win schedule to me too.
Yeah. I don't know. This is tough. Cincinnati opens the season with Nebraska. This feels like it's a little hot. This is a little hot for Cincinnati. I I think I would pick Cincinnati to make a bowl, but like I might be more like 6-6 with Cincinnati than 7-5. So,
yeah.
All right, let's get to the teams that are projected to have losing records. Again, all these over/under win totals. It's for the 12-game regular season. It doesn't count the bowl game or conference championship game and everything. The 5.5 win club, another big group. Boston College, Michigan State, Pitt, Rutgers, Syracuse, West Virginia, Wisconsin. This is, again, we could do 90 minutes just on this group. Pitt last year starting 7-0. They cleared, and they did the same thing last year. They cleared their win total easily, and then they fell apart and didn't win again the rest of the year. What's Syracuse going to be like? I'm super curious about. West Virginia with Rich Rod, redo year 2 of Jonathan Smith, year 2 of Bill O'Brien for Michigan State and Boston College. And then is Luke Fickell going to like save his job and show what the new Wisconsin is? Or is this like the last straw for Wisconsin? Like I could not be more fascinated by this group of 7 teams.
That's what's most interesting to me about this group. And then the one team we have on the 4.5 line is that it's like, say any of these go under. So these 7 schools at 5.5, we have Maryland at 4.5. Any of those 8 schools go under, which coach is losing his job because of that? Because I think Luke Fickell is in that situation if Wisconsin's under. I think Mike Loxley is in that situation if Maryland is under.
And there's only one that's even halfway there, I would say, though. Bill O'Brien's not, Jonathan Smith's not, Greg Schiano's not, Fran Brown's not, Rich Rodriguez is not, but you're talking Nardog maybe.
Narduzzi is in a bit of a pickle, I think, if this is a losing season.
Yeah. Because that's
on the heels of losing season crumbling, losing season is not a great 3-year run.
Yeah. Well, and it's not dissimilar from Luke Fickell in Wisconsin, where he tried something new offensively. He's a defensive-minded coach who's had a lot of success being defensive-minded, being a little bit old school. You try something new on the offense. Man, there's a lot of comparisons here. Phil Longo and Cade Bell. It already didn't work at Wisconsin, but this is going to be year 2 of Cade Bell at Pitt. And again, it started so hot and then it ended so poorly. They still have Des Reed back. We talked about rebuilding some of that offensive line on the trade show. Eli Holstein back, who had a lot of injury issues last year. I think there's real potential at Pitt, but you could, and they have a new AD too, right? New AD last year. So if you feel like, hey, Narduzzi tried it now, but if Narduzzi sticks around, he has a chance to be the winningest coach in Pitt history. Like he's on track to be that, right? And so like I do think there's a lot of substance there with Pat Narduzzi, and I think it might be underappreciated, the winning that he's done at Pitt. But if you see an established coach because what's the first thing? If you're not getting it done as a head coach, especially an older head coach who's been around, right? The first thing they let you do is try to change it up with your assistants. And then if that doesn't work, then they're like, well, it's you. So Narduzzi already went down the road of trying to change it up with his assistants. And there was some talk like Randy Bates, I don't know, defensive coordinator. He's done a good job. Was he going to maybe his agent was putting him in the Ohio State mix this offseason? But where else do you go? Like if this doesn't work, if they go under this total, to your point, and don't make a bowl, where else do they go? They got a transfer quarterback from Alabama. They brought in Cade Bell from Western Carolina, who brought half his roster offensively with him, including Des Reed, who's been awesome. But how's Pitt going to get better if it's not with this? And then all of a sudden you're thinking about what could we do differently? Man, you just talked me into Narduzzi. It's not the hot seat. I would not put him on a hot seat list. But if your point is, if they go under their win total and they're a non-bowl team, could it happen? I think the answer has to be yes.
Yeah, I think it could happen. It's weird. It's a weird existence, like between a hot seat and like I don't know. Someone just sit next to your seat with a lighter, waiting to warm it up. I don't know, but it's a tough spot. I don't know, because like I expressed concern about this last year, and you like pushed back on it, and I think reasonably so. But it's the way that the season got away from him last year. It was just like pretty bad. But I don't know too. Like if it's a 5-7, but you beat West Virginia, maybe.
Totally valid, right? Like not all wins are created equal. So that's a very good point. Like super interesting brawl. We going to the brawl?
I'm going to the brawl. I don't know what you're doing. I'll be there. Actually, I don't know if that's true. I think when's the brawl?
Were you gonna say your brother's getting married that day? You're gonna tell your brother?
My brother's getting married that weekend, I think.
Yeah. He'll understand.
Yeah.
Nardog's calling. Nardog and Rich Rod. I think I'll probably have to write a poem that weekend about Nardog versus Rich Rod. Maryland was 4.5. You mentioned that. We already had a pretty good Maryland discussion. I think of like, I don't know if it's now, but it's the future. But like, there's real stuff there. There's real stuff here with Maryland. I would not give up. And it's not just Malik Washington as a young quarterback. It's Justin Martin as a transfer quarterback from UCLA. Like you can see, Nolan Ray was a guy that you put on like a spring watch as a young running back. They're not out of answers. They're just resetting. God, I hope he gets time to reset it. I think he's the right guy for the job, but they got to get over this win total. 4.5 for Maryland. They're the only team at 4.5.
They are squarely in the Indianification territory of like that team just went to the playoff. We just had back-to-back losing seasons. Not good enough. See you later, Mike Locksley.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right. And this is the dangerous thing, like the danger of success. Like you don't want teams at your level to have more success than you because then ADs and board of trustees and NIL collectives and presidents do exactly that. Oh, I'm taking this over, I think, though. I put Maryland's on my list of teams. Maryland's like Minnesota for me this year. I want to talk about Maryland. But so, like, is there anything, though, when you look at this 4.5, Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, Towson?
That should be 3 wins, obviously.
They don't play Penn State. They don't play Ohio State. They don't play Oregon, which is also one of those, like their schedule's just winnable enough. These are the Big Ten games. At Wisconsin, Washington, Nebraska, at UCLA, Indiana, at Rutgers, at Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State. And the Michigan State game's at Ford Field if they move that on the last Saturday of the regular season. That's just winnable enough that you look at that and it's like, well, why shouldn't you? I'm going over on 4.5. I think they're a bowl team. I think it's a 1 year step back and they'll win a couple games in that middle group of toss-up games.
The thing that's hard for me is like I like Justin Martin quite a bit. But they got good quarterback play at Billy Edwards. They had Ty Felton. They had Ty Felton and Roman Hemby. It's like they had stuff on offense and like it didn't matter. So maybe that was just like Josh Gaddis and Mike Locksley were oil and water and it wasn't going to work. And that messiness spilled over onto the field in a way that was pretty detrimental to Maryland. And this setup will be better. I think that is possible. But I also think that even if they're over and they're 5-7,
you taking that the AD, taking that to Damon Evans, over the win total.
Yeah. I don't know. Mike Locksley might need to win 8 games to keep his job.
Oh my God. I don't like hot seat shows, but I think we could do a show about like coaching status. Let me ask you a question before we get to our last 2 teams here and before we get to what you're watching, what you eat, and what you're thinking, before we get to a tease of some things we're going to do next week that are going to involve the people who are here live for the show, who are going to participate in the show potentially more than they ever have before. Can't remember what I was going to say. I had so many caveats in the midst of that question that, I still can't remember.
I said Mike Locksley needs to win 8 games. You said you don't like hot seat stuff. Yeah.
You pointed out that Stu Mandel and Bruce Feldman on their podcast, National College Football Podcast on The Athletic, did like their best coaches rankings and that there were some like the North showed up pretty good, right? In their top 25 coaches rankings.
Yes. The North, I can tell you, Bruce had 14 North, 9 South, 2 border. Stu had 13 North, 11 South, 1 border.
Okay. What is the value of like best coach rankings? Because I feel like mostly what people do is just a reflection of what happened the year before. And it was like Marcus Freeman was much lower on everybody's list. And then Notre Dame made the national championship game. Now Marcus Freeman is much higher. Has he actually changed a ton as a coach? Like it's so reflective.
Yes.
That it's just going to be like, Sark, Texas has had 2 good years. Sark's in the top 5. It's like, I don't know. Is that interesting? I'm kind of out on best coaches lists unless you're really willing to really get deep on what would other coaches do in this spot? And unless you're really willing to say, I got Lance Leipold 3, and unless you're really willing to say, I got Fran Brown 6, like that kind of thing. I think these guys are special beyond these were the best teams last year and I'm putting their coaches there. You know what I mean? Do you agree with that? Or could we do an interesting, valuable, and everybody does it. I'm not criticizing people who do it. I'm just kind of out on it. Coach rankings.
I think there's a way to do it that's a little more interesting and valuable. Yeah. That's not like hyper reactive. That seems like a lot of these are like to what just happened. More holistic, cumulative kind of stuff, maybe, or to your point, like contextual, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, because you're not just rating programs, but it's like constantly thinking, what would anybody else do in the exact same situation? What would anybody else do in the exact same situation?
Mm-hmm.
Is this person is like getting 88% out of this program out of 100%. This person's only getting 63%. Like that to me, but then also I guess people would maybe care about our opinions of that, but that's really hard to do. And it's easy breezy to be like, I got Ryan Day 1. It's like, okay. Like, not that that's wrong, but like, why do you have Ryan Day 1? Because they won the national championship. Why do you have Kirby Smart 1 and Ryan Day 2? Because Kirby Smart has 2 titles and Ryan Day has 1. Why is Marcus Freeman in the top 5 now? Because he made the national championship game. Like that. But isn't that what people do? And again, not to criticize. But isn't that what people do?
Well, yeah, because that's. I mean, it's hard to quantify like what exactly. But like Lance Leipold doing what he's doing at Kansas, it's like, can I put Lance Leipold 1?
Isn't he 1? For real, isn't he 1?
People would do that. Like, bad
he's doing
Kansas
something nobody's ever done before. Who could do better than Lance Leipold?
Yeah.
And then by the same token, if you put Lance Leipold at Michigan or Notre Dame or Ohio State or Penn State or Oregon, would he be doing any worse than the guys who were there? I don't know. Like that.
I don't know, but he would recruit as well. Like, would he have the same recruiting energy? I don't like that. That's. Yeah, I don't know. That's what makes.
But then also, what are we rating? Like to me, if we're rating best coaches and our rating criteria is how good of a job you are doing at the place you are, and we're not getting into any hypotheticals. We're rating the coaching job Lance Leipold is doing at Kansas versus the coaching job James Franklin's doing at Penn State. Then I think we can get interesting. And if we try to go by, maybe we could even do that. Now I want to do this show. You and I do all of our coaches, and we do it. We each give a percentage on what we think that what percent of the program are they getting out of the program right now?
Yeah.
Given its past history, its resources, its location, its emphasis on football, this guy is only getting 47% out of the program. Now we're talking. But also, I wouldn't be prepared to do that for the Power 68, but we could try. I'm not sure I have strong opinions on what Jeff Levy's doing at Mississippi State. Yeah, right. Like, is Clark Lee a genius, or do they just like luck into Diego Pavi? I don't know.
Right.
And I don't really want to know. So anyway, do you want to do this show now? We're planning the show on the show. Is that a good show?
There maybe. I mean, we just be making up the percentage, right? But
there's nothing I like more than making up. You love brackets. I love making up percentages.
Right. We could do a version of it. Yeah.
Okay. 3.5 wins, Northwestern and Purdue. If Northwestern goes under this, Northwestern has a new coach for 2026 for the new stadium. I think that's where I would go with that.
I think that's right. Yep.
And Barry Odom at Purdue gets all the time he needs to figure out what the heck is going on there with a completely revamped roster. Where, like, in the end, they had like 5 guys go in the portal that were like teams were ravenous to get them. And it's like, how did Purdue win 1 game last year with Dylan Thieneman and Max Clare and some real guys? Like what exactly happened there? So I'm not sure. The one thing I want to tease before we get to Whatcha is we are going to do brackets on this show for like the next 5 shows, at least 4. And we're going to create like a 64-person field of the most important person to Northern college football for 2025. And we're going to have 4 16-person regions. And the regions are going to be coaches, both head coaches and assistants, quarterbacks, other offensive players, and then defensive players. Those are going to be our 4 regions. Bill's going to create the 16 players and seed 2 of the regions. I'll do 2 of the regions. And then on the show, we'll do like a segment each. Like we'll do 16 at a time, one region at a time. And I think, Bill, the way we'll work it out is you and I will pick who we think should win the matchup. And if we split, the people who are live in the YouTube comments will break the tie. Not scientifically, just like the instant push from them of like, oh, I think it should be this guy. And then we say, okay, it feels like the vibe is this guy. And we'll do the whole bracket. But it will get us in the end to like, and we will say we have this, we will do this for our 64 people. We'll represent at least one person from all of our 28 teams. So if we have to like shift some stuff a little bit, and it's not best, it's like most important. So like, for instance, I'm doing quarterbacks, and like I was thinking about this. Like I might put Dylan Lonergan from Boston College in the 16 quarterbacks, because like if Dylan Lonergan, the 4-star Alabama transfer, like can matter at Boston College this year, the way Eli Holstein went in and won the job from Nate Yarnell at Pitt last year as a Bama transfer, if Dylan Lonergan wins the job from Grayson James this year and does something, what if Boston College has like a start like Pitt did? Like that matters. Eli Holstein mattered last year. What was he, one of the best 16 quarterbacks? He mattered to Northern football. So, like, I think I would put Dylan Lonergan in that discussion, even though somebody else might be better. You know what I mean? So, like, most important, most impactful kind of person.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that, because we're going to dig into like some like coordinators too, not just head coaches.
Yeah, not just. Interesting. Yeah. So I'm doing the coaches. You don't want to know what I got. You don't want to know what I got for an 8-9 matchup in my rough bracket of Northern coaches who matter. Oh, and man. You don't want to know who I might have them playing as the 1 seed in round 2. You don't want to know. It'll blow your mind.
I'm nervous.
Yeah, you should be nervous. Yeah. You should be nervous. But it's fun to do. I already did you sketch out your brackets yet at all? I kind of tried to sketch out my brackets a little bit.
Not yet. No, I haven't gone through it yet.
I was up like 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like, what do you want to do? Sketch out a bracket? I'm sketch out a bracket. What's better than sketching out a Northern bracket of like coaches that matter? Trying to figure out this Danny Collins, the new Minnesota defensive coordinator. Does he fit in the bracket or not? Is he one of the 16 seeds? That's what I'm doing at 3 o'clock in the morning. All right.
You should sleep.
That's our window. I woke up. I did this. We can talk. Well, this is leading into Whatcha. I did this last night. I'm an idiot, and I decided to have like breakfast for dinner. And so then I was having breakfast for dinner, and then I wanted coffee with my breakfast for dinner. And then I shot up awake at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, what's going on? And I was like, you had coffee at 8:30, you complete moron. And it had an effect on your body. But it's hard. But if I'm having breakfast my body wants coffee with breakfast for dinner.
Yeah, breakfast for dinner is great. I actually have been better about it. But I was a time in my life I was quite bad about the nighttime coffee. Like I would just put on a pot at 8 o'clock and
for real?
Drink the whole thing.
Oh my God. But also you are so much younger than me. Like there was a time when my body could handle it. My body can't handle squat anymore. So I had one cup of coffee and I was like, why am I wide awake? And that never happens to me. I was wide awake at 4 a.m. And I was like, what happened? That's what happened. You idiot.
You made a bracket. Yeah.
Also, Miami of Ohio and Maryland are different M's. Learning a lot on this show. When we come back, what you watch? No more ball talk. What you watching? What you eating? What you thinking? Next on KOTN. Doug Lesmerises. Bill, is my mic working, by the way? Last time we took a break, my mic exploded. I don't know what happened.
It's working. Yeah.
We're back, along with producer Mike. Thanks to you guys for being here. Every Wednesday we do it. It's what you're watching, what you're eating, what you're thinking. Mike brought up, we didn't discuss it, that Rich Rod at West Virginia said his players can't dance on TikTok or do TikTok. If he means like, I don't want you doing a million videos of like dancing in the locker room. Like if you want to dance in your free time, I get as a coach, I think we've crossed a threshold at times, clearly at times, especially in college sports, with people letting you know what's going on in the locker room to a degree that might not be great for the program.
Yeah, I agree with that. But also telling your players not to do things on TikTok is now messing with their money because you can monetize that as college athletes.
I think you should be able to dance.
Here's some great quotes from him.
Okay.
This
Rich
is
Rod
a
talking
quote.
about TikTok
Yes.
dancing.
Yes. He said, "It's like, look, we try to have a hard edge or whatever, and you're in there in your tights dancing on TikTok ain't quite the image of our program that I want." And then he said, "I'm allowed to do that. I can have rules. 20 years from now, if they want to be sitting in their pajamas in the basement, eating Cheetos and watching TikTok or whatever the hell, they can go at it. Smoking cannabis, whatever. Knock yourself out."
Okay. Well,
Okay,
the Rich Rod
not
era at
bad.
West Virginia was good while it lasted.
And scene.
We'll see in 2 years when they have a new head coach because this guy can't deal with 2025 teenagers.
Yeah, he
Deion
said, "I
Sanders
hope
to
our
West
focus
Virginia.
can be on winning football games. How about let's win the football game and not worry about winning the TikTok?"
Okay. Great.
Yeah. Locker room TikTok, it was different. Like, put on, some of the implications, like whatever he's going for there is not, that's not going to serve him. That's
sure won't.
No. Okay. Now I feel worse about West Virginia. Okay.
What was it win total?
Everybody's
5.5.
TikTok.
5.5.
Everybody's on TikTok. All right. What are you watching, Landis?
I watched Wicked over the weekend.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I really liked it.
You did?
I knew, like, yeah. I thought it was really good. Like, I thought it looked cool. Like I don't know much about that director or what else he's done, but I just thought that the look of it was very good. Obviously, the singing was very good. I don't mind a musical. I don't know that I don't watch a ton of them, but I don't mind a musical. But I enjoyed everything about it.
Interesting.
And like I'm fired up to watch the second part of it when it comes out in the fall.
Yeah. Interesting. My family went and saw it, and I just in the theater, and I just was like, I know myself enough. Like, I'm going to ruin the experience for everybody else if I go. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like this. So there's no point in me even trying. And I do like musicals, but isn't it kind of long?
I didn't feel like it was too long.
Okay.
It's over 2 hours, but maybe like 2.5, maybe.
And it doesn't end, right? Is it a cliffhanger because there's a second part?
I mean, yes, there's a second part. It's 2:40. It didn't feel that long. Yeah, it's long. Like, so like my wife very much likes it. She said like the first film is longer than the entire runtime of the play that covers all the ground that the two movies are going to cover.
Yeah.
But I guess there's some exposition that's necessary too for the movie, which I appreciated and felt like I needed. So I don't know that it felt long. It is like a cliffhanger. I wouldn't say it's a cliffhanger. One, because we've all seen The Wizard of Oz, we know what happens.
Yeah.
And two, it is a pretty definitive moment where the first movie ends. That doesn't leave you dissatisfied about just randomly finding a place in the middle to end the first movie.
Okay. I would definitely go see the musical on stage. I don't think I have any interest in the movie version.
I would say I don't want to go see a movie in a theater that people turn into a thing where we're not just sitting there watching the movie. I don't want people singing along to the songs while I'm watching it, or clapping or cheering or whatever. Just sit down, be quiet, and watch the movie. So this is an at-home experience for me, very much so.
Okay.
But on my own couch was great.
I really do think I am in on stage musicals, watching it live. I am not that in on movies made from staged musicals. So
I've never seen a Broadway musical. Is there a sense of decorum for those where people aren't singing along with the songs while they're happening?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. No, it's a fancy night. Yeah. I like musicals. I watched a show called my wife can climb it. High Priority, I think it's called. Is that right? It's with the woman who was on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. High Potential. I say it wrong every time.
Yeah.
High Potential.
She's like what's his name? What was it, Columbo or Monk or whatever? It's Lady Columbo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she is like a genius who can solve. So there's two things about this. One is I can never figure out how like TV writers, when you're writing a show every week where like you have character development and stuff, but also you have to come up with a mystery every week, blows my mind. And especially a show like this where high potential, it's like the idea is that the crimes are difficult to solve and like her genius brain is kind of the only one that can solve them. So then the crimes have to be super geniusy or super hard to figure out. How do you do that? How do you do that like 20 times or 13 times in a season? We came up with like 13 awesome crimes. It's like, why don't you just come up with one and make a movie of it? And then the second thing is, like in the prestige TV era, I mean, and I just own every freaking streaming service. I can't help it. I cancel them and then like we uncancel them. And before we know, it's like, do we have cable and 7 streaming services? Yes, because we're idiots. I can't help. I'm sorry. I don't watch a ton of network TV, especially like traditional, like shows like this, like a cop show. So I guess this is on ABC. I watch it on Hulu. I don't watch it on TV. But anyway, it's like you can just tell the difference between sort of like a prestige streaming show and like a network show. Like they just lit brighter, and there's a little more convention to it and whatever. And I think we've swung a lot of snooty TV people have swung so far the other way. And this is just like a really good, fun, interesting network show that's well acted and interestingly written and wraps up in 51 minutes every week. And I really like it. And I don't know that I can remember the last time I liked a network show this much. And I really like this show. My wife and I are like catching up on every episode, and it's very good. I would recommend it. It's on Hulu. It's also on ABC.
Check it out. I like her.
Yeah, she's very charming.
Caitlin Olsen, because I like the Always Sunny folks. Maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah. So just a heads up. All right. What are you eating?
I think I mentioned before this company, it's called Sandwich Bros. They make like half pita sandwiches you get in the freezer aisle. And they have like an egg and turkey sausage one that I eat quite often. But I also discovered recently that they have a spicy chicken and cheese one too.
Ooh.
And they're pretty good. They're microwavable. They're like half pita sandwiches, so I usually eat 2 at a time.
Obviously,
but it's like a spicy chicken patty and pepper jack cheese, and it's just like a nice, quick option for lunch if you're like scrambling but you need to eat so you don't go crazy. And it's 90 seconds in the microwave, and you got a spicy chicken sandwich for lunch. That's like that holds up well in the microwave, because I think it's tricky when you want to microwave a sandwich. The bread can get like soggy very easily.
People need to know when it comes to like microwaving a sandwich and does the bread stand up, there's nobody you want to listen to more than Bill Landis.
That's right. These hold up well, and it's like a thicker pita bread. Maybe that helps, but
okay.
I like them. They have there's 2 breakfast ones. There's egg and cheese, and there's turkey sausage, egg and cheese that I like, and then there's a spicy chicken and a regular chicken that do well in a pinch and taste good. Yeah.
I also feel like if you were a superhero, would you be Sandwich Boy?
Probably. Yeah.
By day, he's Philly Billy. Yeah. By night, he's Sandwich Boy.
Let's be honest. I'm Sandwich Boy every hour of the day.
By day, he's Sandwich Boy. At night, he's still Sandwich Boy. What are you going to do? But if he fights crime while he's eating a sandwich. Yeah. All right. This is my visual aid for what I'm eating. You were part of this and you forgot about it. You and I were on a work trip and we stopped at a Buc-ee's, which is a gas station primarily in the South.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought a small can of Pringles.
Yeah, I forgot.
And I opened the small can of Pringles, and it was such a shock to the system that I took like one tiny little bite, and I have been saving these for 2 weeks on my nightstand so that I can do this on this show. This is a scandal that we are ready to blow the roof off of. And I don't know who's going down. I don't know if it's Mr. Pringle. I don't know if it's an inside job at Buc-ee's, but this is how my Pringles came. And you can attest to this, right?
I can.
Because you saw this. This is how they came. Ready? Can you? Oh, wait. I'm pouring them out. It's complete crushed Pringles. Can you see, Mike? Can we go wide on me? People, I just dropped them in my keyboard. Oh, that was terrible. Look, there is not a single hole. Oh my God, they're all over my keyboard.
I love that you knew you were going to do this and then didn't bother to get a plate to bring up to your office.
I got a notebook. Notebook's a plate. Look at this. Not a single full chip. The entire mini can crushed. So I don't know how this happens. I don't know what would happen in nature because Pringles are stacked so tightly that you would get smashed Pringles like this from shipping. So I feel like these were either smashed in the factory or somebody went in them and smashed them after the fact. Bill, I think we need to get high potential. This is their next case. The case of the smashed Pringles. How can there not be a single full chip in the whole can?
Can you check the can to make sure you didn't accidentally buy Pringles Oops All Crumbs?
Bursting with flavor. It doesn't say it's smashed with flavor.
Okay.
Are you not? Am I overly outraged by this? This is mind-blowing to me.
No, I can't believe that happened. One, the physics of it, but two, like, how did this get past quality control?
Yeah. It's like Creed Bratton was on quality control that day. Took the day off. I feel like someone would have had to go in and purposefully smash the Pringles with a smashing rod of some sort.
Back into the can.
Yeah. And then dump them back in. You know who this is a case for? This is a case for Sandwich Boy. Because wouldn't Sandwich Boy care about this?
I think he just eats the evidence.
And then they didn't. Guess what?
Because you know what crushed up Pringles are great for? Putting on a sandwich. So this is actually tremendous.
If they had tasted good smashed up, I would have eaten them. I took one bite, and they were terrible. So like, maybe like we have Turkey Bass in here saying, is there a kid in the store who's just walking around shaking up? No, I want to go to the tape. This is what high potential would do. Go back.
But don't you want to go buy a
security tape?
Go buy a little can of Pringles and like shake it up to see if it would actually, because in my mind, it doesn't work.
Now you're thinking like a detective.
Yeah.
Now I got me.
This had to be this was pre-canned. This was pre-canned.
What if these are trying to kill me? When did this happen? At what point in the process did these Pringles turn to dust? I should have gotten a plate. That's a better idea. There are so many crumbs in my keyboard. I can't believe how many crumbs are in my keyboard right now. That was a bad move by me. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about? Oh, I'm thinking about the crumbs in my keyboard. That'll be mine. What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about, I tweeted this yesterday. It's unseasonably warm. It's like in the 70s here. So now we have our first batch of days where you can drive with the windows down. Are you a drive with the windows down guy? I'm a big drive with the windows down guy.
With your arm out?
Arm out, windows down, sunroof open. But the tunes you choose are very important.
Oh,
I think when you encounter your first windows down driving day, whatever music you pick for that, you're setting the tone for the rest of your spring and summer. So you have to be intentional about what you pick. So for me, it was Steely Dan. I chose Steely Dan, which was a nice, lovely time. And I also don't like there are people I think who like to drive around and blast their music in a way that can be like disruptive to the public. But I'm also cognizant of like if I'm stopped at a red light and I listen to my music fairly loud and someone hears that, like I want what they hear to like put them in a good mood. Like they're walking around, it's a lovely spring or summer day, and they hear a good tune as they're walking down the street. Like I want to be the person that provides that for them. Yeah. So like it's important. It's important to me what you're listening to when you're driving with the windows down.
I think it's one of Sandwich Boy's superpowers is to pick the right music to make people feel good when you're driving around on the spring day. I will caution you that a week ago on this very show, I talked about the weather turning and how it was beautiful now, and it literally started snowing an hour later.
I know. We're in the clear for like 3 more days of 70s, I think.
Okay.
But then it's going to rain.
That was a very good one. Oh, good. We should get a Philly Billy Sandwich Boy spring driving playlist that we could put out there for the people.
It's just Summertime by Will Smith 55 times.
Everyone's getting their car washed. Did you see? People saw this in the Midwest. It was like all
Dirty
the
rain.
dirt,
Yeah.
all the dirt from Texas got caught up in the rain, and then it just rained dirt on the entire upper Midwest. And like have you seen the car wash lines are just like 50 cars long?
I finally got my car washed 2 days ago, but I went like 5 different times and the lines were insane.
Would it surprise you to know that I refuse to wash my car?
No, not at all. You let nature do it for you.
Yeah, it's called God's car wash. He's got me.
Yeah.
It's coming. Yeah. Well, I of all the things, and I know, I suppose, is it bad for my car to have it covered with dirt for 3 weeks until it rains? Is it bad for it?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do it. Like, it's just, I'm not going to wash it myself, but I'm also not going to pay for it because I don't care. I don't care what it looks like. And I guess if someone's going to tell me that like I'm ruining the exterior paint of my car by letting Texas dirt sit on it for 3 weeks, I don't know. But I just would never do it. But I also feel like the Texas dirt clouds are also like might be like big car wash, like the car wash industrial complex.
Big car wash. Yeah.
They're getting you.
They are. But you would see, so you have I've been to your house. You have a driveway you can park in front of your house. Like I would, if I had the setup that you have, I'd be washing my car once a week.
Oh, for joy? Because you get pleasure out of the result, or because you would enjoy the process?
Both. But I also when I grew up, I grew up in a row home. In the summer, you park your car on the curb in front of your house. You walk the hose down to the sidewalk, and you're just washing your car out front of your house. Like it's just a thing to do on a nice day.
Oh, yeah. No. Okay. No. I get pleasure neither from the process nor the result, so I don't do it. Okay. And I get no pleasure from someone else doing it for $12 or whatever.
It's pretty expensive. It's like $20.
Of all the things, it's just like, to me, it's like, of all the things I could spend the money on, I would rather spend it on Pringles than getting my car washed. And I know that I'm the weird one there because I can tell by the lines and lines and lines of cars. But do you think is it because people are smarter than me and know it's bad for their cars to have Texas dirt on it, or do people care how their cars look?
For me, it's more about I care how my car looks. Like I just don't want to be driving around in the car. I don't want to give someone the opportunity to wash me in the dust on my car.
No. I would give someone the opportunity to wash me on me. I don't care about cleaning. As my wife points out in the chat, we don't clean anything. So anyway,
I don't clean a whole lot either. My house is quite filthy, but I like a clean car.
That is actually though too.
I like a clean outside of my car because the inside of my car is gross.
So it's just all about pretense. You're putting on airs, sandwich boy. I didn't peg you for a guy who put on airs. I thought you were keeping it real.
Only when it comes to my car.
I'm keeping it real with Pringles on my keyboard and Texas dirt on my car. That's how we do it here in the North. All right. Thanks to everybody for being a part of it today. We'll be back next Monday with the first version of a bracket, but not just the bracket. Some people love brackets. You said you love brackets. Not everybody does. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to do like a whole bracket show. We'll just have a little segment as we're doing all this other stuff. As spring football starts for so many teams next week. Thanks as always to Mike Yerstowski, our producer, for making us look good and sound good. Thanks to you guys for being here. Otherwise, we're just people pouring Pringles on keyboards for no reason. We so appreciate being able to do this show about Northern College football. We do it 6 or 7 times a week during the season, and we're doing it twice a week here in the off season. So for now, he is Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of the North.